Welcome, everybody. Today we are talking about debt.
The false teaching of debt, specifically.
Specifically, yeah.
You did a really good job in
Thanks, honey.
research. I'm excited about this particular video and talking about debt. Good debt, bad debt. What is it?
So debt stirs up a lot of emotions in people for different reasons. So what are your thoughts about debt? If it feels like fear or scarcity, I want you to pay attention to that, because we're not to operate in those feelings, those emotions.
Right.
We want to operate from a position of love and abundance.
Right.
So let's contrast Robert Kiyosaki with Dave Ramsey, okay? If you know Robert Kiyosaki, he wrote the #1 all-time best-selling personal finance book in the history of the world, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he has a radio show also talking about personal finance. And Dave Ramsey wrote a book on personal finance called The Total Money Makeover, and he has a radio show. But these guys could not be more apart from each other on their position of debt. So we want to talk a little bit about that today. And to be clear, I am not telling you to go into debt. I am not telling you to avoid debt. I want to look at both of these positions and maybe equip you with some tools so that you can come up with the best solution for yourself. Okay?
Because more than not, it's positive.
Yeah.
Something that I've learned. I never thought it was, but it is.
Yeah. So for Robert Kiyosaki, that dude is pumped up that he has $1.2 billion with a B, $1.2 billion in debt.
Well, in one of your YouTube videos, you actually said that you're currently $600 million in debt. No?
1.2 billion.
1.2 billion. Okay.
He loves it. You know why? Because for him, debt is money.
Right.
Okay?
But debt is money today. And so when I acquire an asset, I use debt.
And people lose their mind over this. And we're going to talk about it later.
Right.
But people lose their mind over the fact that this financial guru is $1.2 billion in debt. And then you got Dave Ramsey, who is anti-debt.
Right.
Like for him, debt is evil, right? It's bad.
It's a pit. It's a ball and chain.
Yeah. So we got to take a look at that. But the debt situation is real. It seems like everybody's in debt, right? According to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, total household debt climbed to $17.69 trillion in the first quarter of 2024.
Wow.
So it's at an all-time high, and it's on an upward trajectory. And the concerning issue, too, is that delinquencies are also on an upward trajectory. So people are struggling with debt.
That's right. So huddle up, team. We are John and Tara Thorman, your financial success coaches. We help entrepreneurs and influencers, business owners, and self-employed professionals to achieve financial freedom faster so you can enjoy it longer.
That's right. So it seems that virtually everyone is in debt, right? So why is debt so bad to people like Dave Ramsey and so good to people like Robert Kiyosaki? Is there really good debt and bad debt? And if so, what's the difference? Okay. Well, good debt, we are defining as something that you use to purchase assets without spending all of your own money. This gives you leverage, okay? Leverage to grow your assets and grow your cash flow faster because you're using other people's money.
Right. And don't be afraid of that word.
Leverage.
Leverage.
Right.
You'll do a good job of explaining leverage throughout the video.
Thanks, honey.
Just important.
All right. So bad debt is used for personal consumption, right? You're going out to the mall doing retail therapy. You're buying stuff that you can't afford and that you really don't need to placate or to self-medicate. Bad debt is bad debt. Like you don't want that, okay? But when it comes down to really is your philosophy and your beliefs.
That's right.
And those are shaped by your religion, your education, your training, experience, and your personal influences, okay? Now, I just want to say debt is not inherently good or bad, right? It's neither. It's a financial power tool, a tool that can be used to gain leverage in order to acquire or purchase, buy more goods and services without using all of your own money.
That's right.
Since it's a power tool, though, you must learn how to properly use the tool. Okay? And you've got to properly respect the tool, because power tools can kill you. Basically, okay?
They will mess things up.
There are many different types of leverage, but most people associate leverage with debt. And that's a problem, because leverage is good. And most people assume or presuppose that debt is bad.
Right.
And I don't want people to get those confused.
Right.
Leverage is a good thing. Leverage is essential if you want to attain a certain degree of wealth. Like, you can't get wealthy without leverage.
Right.
Okay? But it doesn't mean that it's debt. There's all different kinds of leverage. So don't just assume when I say leverage that I mean debt. I don't. I mean giving you the ability to get more done with less effort, acquire more assets with less money. There's more than debt to get leverage. Okay? Now, debt for some people is the power tool that changed their life, changed their financial life and their family's legacy for generations to come. And it changed their life because it gave them the ability to buy a profitable business, or to expand their business to make more money, or to start their own business so they could begin their journey of leverage, okay, so that they could build wealth for their family. But for others, debt is a power tool that accidentally cut their arm off, right, and left them disabled for life. So we got both sides of the equation here when we're talking about debt. Now, in Dave Ramsey's case, debt was the buzzsaw that bankrupted him, you know, when he was investing in real estate in his mid-20s, okay? Dave's debt experience was extremely high risk, though. Like, we got to put this in perspective. He was financing real estate investment purchases with 100% loan to value. So he had no money down, and he was using 90-day commercial paper that was callable.
And folks can fact check this, right?
Yeah.
He talks about this.
Yeah.
Candidly.
Right. This is public information. I'm not telling you anything out of school or anything that's new. This is what he did. So what happened was his bank, you know, got bought out, and the new banker said, "Who is this 26-year-old owing all this money? We're done with it." And they called the notes, and so he went broke. What happens is Dave swung from one extreme, right? Like 100% financing, callable 90-day, notes. That's like the extreme on debt financing. He swung all the way to the other end, which was 0% financing. Now debt is the devil, and we are not going to ever have debt again in our lifetime, period, no matter what.
That's right.
And I'm not kidding. Like, that's his position, right? People ask him the questions like, Dave, if you could borrow, I don't even know what the number was, like $1 billion interest free for, 10 years or something like that, would you do it? And he said no. Now, of course, he had to say no because he's the no debt guy. But I mean, that's ridiculous. Of course you would, because you can put that money somewhere and earn 5% interest guaranteed and make a killing. But that's not the point. The point is, he swung from one extreme to the other. Dave and his financial mentors interpreted Proverbs 22, verse 7, which says the borrower is slave to the lender. They interpreted that as a prescription to live a life completely debt-free and to pay off all your debt as quickly as possible.
He's taken that verse and created an 11th commandment with it, that thou shalt not be in debt
Right.
for anything ever except for a mortgage on your personal home.
But only
for 15 years. Payment is no more than 25% of your take-home pay, and you promise to pay it off as quickly as possible.
That's right. So now this is really, to me, it was shocking. He said, we're violating a biblical principle when we take out a mortgage.
It's a really good question. Of course, you're quoting the scriptures, Proverbs 22:7, the rich rules over the poor and the borrower is slave to the lender. And this is a biblical principle that we're violating when we say it's okay to take out a mortgage. And that's your point, and you're correct completely on that.
So guys, part of us, we're having this conversation because we don't want you to feel guilty for having debt. right? Like some of this rhetoric is unbelievable to me. I don't want you to feel guilty for having debt. Debt is a financial power tool, and it's been created for you to use to help you grow your wealth faster.
Right.
So why the heck does Dave say he's violating a biblical principle? First of all, I don't believe it's a principle at all.
Right.
Okay? But this speaks to Dave's personal convictions about debt. But his personal convictions about debt is not the truth. Okay? It's his personal conviction.
Right.
It's his opinion.
Right.
It's his belief.
And he chose to do that for him, and that
Right.
and that's important to him.
And he could do that.
That's right.
Like have more power to Dave, right? To be creative and find other options
Correct.
than using debt. But it's not for everybody.
Right.
So the borrower is slave to the lender, I don't believe is a biblical principle. I believe it's a caution. Okay? I believe it's a caution for you as a potential borrower to be aware of all the risks that are involved when you take on debt. Now, fortunately for us, Dave isn't God, okay? And there's still the original 10 commandments. There's not 11, okay? So we don't have to worry about that. But the verse Dave quotes all the freaking time isn't prescriptive at all.
Right.
I believe it's descriptive.
Right.
It's not telling you how to live. It's telling you how things are,
Right.
okay? And it tells us that so that we can see the caution and take appropriate measures to protect ourselves. The chapter and verses surrounding this, half a verse that Dave quotes, really is about the relationship between the rich and the poor. And it's a call to the rich in many respects to not take advantage of the poor. It's about the relationship between the rich and the poor and how to be and how to manage that better. Okay. I think from this, we can see that the duty of man is to be responsible, respectful, and compassionate on both sides of the equation. It's not just for the borrower. It's not bad for the borrower only, because there's two parties. If it's bad for the borrower, then it must be bad also for the lender. So this whole conversation has got to deal with both parties, the lender and the borrower, and how can they function together in a way that glorifies God, right? So I want to introduce you to this gentleman, David Mitchell. He's the senior pastor for 25 years for this church in Texas, but he's also a fourth generation family business owner. And he talks about the purpose of debt. And I found this fascinating.
The purpose of debt, according to the Bible, is to end poverty. Now that's strange, isn't it? Because mostly what you learn about debt out there among Christians is it's evil and you should stay away from it.
So for the entrepreneur, Dave Mitchell offers some incredible biblical reference here to considering the use of debt. And I'd never really seen this before, right? It's the story of the prophet Elisha and the widow's oil in 2 Kings 4, verses 1 through 7. So, honey, I'm going to have you read that, okay, really quick?
Such a great story. This is a true story.
Yeah.
I love the Bible is a history book, as we know. So this is a true story. I believe it with all my heart. A certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets, he cried out to Elisha, and she said, "Your servant, my husband, is dead. And you know that your servant feared the Lord, and the creditor is coming to take my sons to be his slaves." So Elisha says to her, "What shall I do for you? Tell me what you have in your house." And she said, "I have nothing, but I have a jar of oil." And he says, "Go borrow vessels from everywhere from your neighbor, empty vessels, and don't just get a few. Leave your home and go and ask.
Borrow even more. Right?
I know. And when you have come in, you're going to shut your door and with your sons, and you're going to begin to pour the oil that you have into those vessels and set them aside." And so she did that. She obeyed. And she brought the oil in and shut the door behind her with her sons, who brought the vessel to her, and she poured and poured. And now it came to pass when the vessels were full. And she said to her son, "Well, bring me another one." And he said, there are no more vessels. So the oil ceased.
It stopped flowing.
The little bit that she had.
Could you imagine a little jar
It's an unbelievable story.
being poured out to fill huge vessels?
Yeah.
And not just a couple. Like, it's a crazy miracle.
Then she came to the man of God, Elisha.
Mm-hmm.
So she went to him, and he says, go sell the oil and pay your debt. And you and your sons are going to live on the rest.
It's unbelievable, right?
The man of God didn't tell her just go pay your debts off fast. What he said was, well, let's pay them off, but let's wait a minute, because what I want you to do is multiply what you have first. Invest what you have and let that multiply. And once you have the new money, the new oil, take that oil and pay the man off, because then you'll have extra that you can keep. It's wealth that you have for your family as well. Plus you pay the debt off.
From this story, I want to encourage you entrepreneurs.
There's a lot of lessons in
There's
that
a lot
story.
in here going on, right? But God
great.
can use what you have, even if you think it's insignificant. I just have this little oil in this little jar. God can use what you have to solve your debt problem, right?
That's right.
Be creative.
That's right. Oh,
The thing that blew me away was Elisha said, go borrow more. Like, she's already in debt. Her husband that died had a debt. He probably had a business, borrowed money for his business, but he dies. He owes this money, and she can't pay it.
right.
So this creditor wants to come and take her sons to work off the debt.
Right.
Elisha does not tell her, well, sell the little bit of oil you have and try to make,
Right. Just get enough for that oil.
No. What does he say? He said, go borrow more. Go into more debt.
Then
Okay.
you get more than you think you need.
But do it because we're going to create some value here. We're going to create some assets here. What I want you to do is borrow these vessels, and God's going to show up and do a miracle. And we'll be able to keep pouring that oil and fill all these vessels up. Just like God can do in your life. With what you have, he can multiply it, okay, so that you've got more than enough. The instruction was to do that first. Get all of the vessels filled with oil.
Yes.
Transform the little that you have into much more assets. Use the debt to buy and create more assets. And from the more assets, then start paying off the debt. Are you kidding me? Like, that's fantastic, right? So I want to encourage you that there is more than one way to do things. All right? We can use debt cautiously, right? But we can use debt to acquire assets that can generate more cash flow, that can use then to pay off the debt, but also keep the assets so that we can keep this going. We can create a wealth cycle. We can create a cash flow cycle that doesn't end.
Very good.
Now, taking on debt also depends not just on your personality and feelings, okay, but also depends on the money game that you are playing. So if we look at this chart here, you'll see that I've broken it down into 4 quarters, if you will. You've got your asset accumulation phase, your asset protection phase, your asset decumulation phase, and your asset transfer phase, okay? So we can't provide one size fits all, debt management advice, because we don't know your game.
Right.
We don't know where you're playing. Where are you at in this game? What situation are you in? Are you early? Are you in the accumulation phase, or are you late and you're in the decumulation phase?
Right.
And we don't know what your comfort level is. I mean, it's just wrong for someone to make blanket one size fits all financial advice when it comes to debt. Now, I know when you're young and you have no assets and you have nothing to lose, debt looks way more attractive. Right? As you gain assets and as you age, if you have more to lose, risking it through debt becomes less attractive. And if you have everything to lose, debt is definitely not attractive. Okay. It's not okay, right? And like Warren Buffett says, never risk what you have and need for something you don't have and don't need. Right? I mean, that's the wisdom there. So it depends. Your debt really depends on your personal situation and where you're at in the game. Okay, and what are you putting at risk? Okay. Also depends on your goals and the amount of resources you're going to need to accomplish them.
Right.
I mean, when we talk corporate finance, we look at equity investments, but also debt investments to compounder to magnify the equity investments so you can get things done. So for you, you're not a businessman. Remember, you are a businessman, right? So what is your capital formation for your business? It can be equity and debt, but we got to manage this right. So some of that's going to depend on how much time's left in your game. But man, I'm so sick and tired of all this one size fits all financial advice, because that fits nobody at all. Okay. And Thomas Sowell, the brilliant, amazing economist, said there is no solutions. There are only trade-offs. So you're going to have to decide what is the trade-off in your personal finances. You got to make the best trade-off you can, given all the variables and economic conditions that you're dealing with at the moment, okay? If you pay cash for something right now, there's an opportunity cost, because now you don't have the cash. Now you don't have the liquidity. Now you can't earn interest on that money anymore, okay? The real issue with debt, though, I think is more of our motivations, right? And how we're going to use that debt.
Right.
So that's why there's good debt and bad debt. But Ramsey's telling people the only good debt is a paid off debt.
Right.
Ugh. Please remember, he is speaking to the average guy or gal, right, who is uneducated and undisciplined when it comes to money. That's not you. You are an entrepreneur, okay? You are a business owner. And you are really, you need to be educated and disciplined at a whole different level. And you need to be able to utilize the power tool of debt if you decide it's the right move for you.
That's right. You're right.
Right? I mean, not everybody needs to use it. Not everybody needs to use it all the time. And there's a difference between getting wealthy and staying wealthy. When we're getting wealthy, we want all the leverage probably that we can get, okay, to grow rapidly. But once we get wealthy, then we want to deleverage. We want to unload the risk and protect ourselves. So don't forget that. Now, here's the thing. Again, my issue with Dave Ramsey is that he's so dogmatic and so focused on getting out of debt. But whatever you focus on grows. And if you're only focused on getting out of debt, once you're debt free, what happens? You just got to zero.
Then what?
Then what? You should be, I think, and my encouragement is, spend your time thinking about how you can acquire more assets. Switch sides. Get on the asset team, not the debt team. Focus on how you can grow and acquire and multiply more assets. Debt is a great tool when used properly to help you buy more assets. And those assets can appreciate in value, but they can also throw off cash flow to service the debt payment and grow your wealth faster. People really have got to stop looking at the one side of the coin, okay? And instead operate from the edge, right? We got the heads, tails, and the edge. My encouragement for everybody is to always play with an edge. Play on that edge, okay? So you can see the whole situation and make the best decision. Now, you know, Robert Kiyosaki said he was $1.2 billion in debt. People lost their mind. And it's so funny because there's no reason to lose your mind, because you don't have enough information to make a judgment. You don't know nothing, okay? What you got to be doing is asking questions like, okay, if you got $1.2 million in debt, what are the assets worth?
Right. What's
the cash flow? What's the terms on the note? What's the interest rate? Is it a recourse loan or a non-recourse loan? All these details matter and make a huge difference on whether it's good for Kiyosaki to be in debt or not.
Right.
So, like Coach Ted Lasso says, be curious, not judgmental.
But then one day I was driving my little boy to school and I saw this quote by Walt Whitman. It was painted on the wall there. It said, "Be curious, not judgmental." And I like that.
Right? Get the information, like find out before you make a judgment. Now, you're an entrepreneur. So these old, worn out, generic, one size fits all advice on debt, it's not meant for you.
Right.
It's meant for the average guy or gal who's uneducated and undisciplined. Okay? So don't feel guilty about having some debt if you're using it to buy assets and grow your wealth. Okay? I want to encourage you, if you found value in this video, please like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel, because we want to have you join us on this journey. The Financial Success Coach team is here to inspire and motivate and encourage you to achieve financial freedom faster so you can enjoy it longer.
Yeah, very good. We'd love to hear your comments too on debt.
Yeah, for sure. Let us know what you think.
The false teaching of debt.
Yeah.
Having debt.
All right, guys, we'll see you
Very good.
on the next video. Have a good one.